This time, Odd is interviewing a longtime friend and supporter of his dream. Meet Yvonne Mason. Yvonne is an author, a bounty hunter, a painter, a photographer, a champion for parental rights, and about 100 other things. She can best be summed up as a 21st century Renaissance woman. Odd and Yvonne have been friends for many years. They don't always see eye to eye, but there is a mutual love and respect for one another that allows them to agree to disagree on things. Whereas everyone else is so quick to want to cut ties, they see each other's perspectives, and can respect each other's opinions enough to not destroy the foundation of their friendship. Enjoy this interview and please check out Yvonne's work via the links provided below.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, with me is the one and the only, the amazing Yvonne Mason. And for those of you that are wondering, I could put probably 30 things in front of her name to explain to you what she does, but it still wouldn't cover everything. Hello, Yvonne. How are you?
I'm fine, darling. How are you?
I'm good. It's been too long.
Way too long.
Schedules and then, just life got in the way.
It did. A lot of things have happened in the past few years.
Yeah. But we've always managed to stay in contact, at least through Facebook and messaging, to check up on one another. So,
well, I like keeping my friends close because during the dark times in my life, my friends are what get me through. Even if my friends and I don't agree on every subject, I love my friends. I cherish my friends and I want them close to me, because if I reach out to my friends and say, okay, today is not one of my better days, I would venture to say that most of them would say, we got your back.
Yeah. And that's something that we've always done, is we've always had that agree to disagree mentality, because we are very much on different sides of the fence when it comes to certain things. And but you're not an asshole about it, and I try not to be an asshole about it.
But it doesn't matter if you are, because see, that's part of your uniqueness.
It is, but as I've gotten older, because I'll be 40 next month, and I have tried. I don't know necessarily if I've tried to mellow, but I've become more pointed with my views. Like, it's not as all over the map and as wild as it used to be. Refined is the word that I'm looking for.
And I think you've learned to pick your battles.
I have, very much so. I can identify stupidity at 1,000 yards now, and I know not to engage.
And you know me, you've seen me put things up on Facebook just to bait those that fall into it, and they will do it. And I just sit back and watch and laugh.
Every time. Like I had someone on my wall the other day. It wasn't bait. It was something that I truly believe in and that I put up. And I knew that there was going to be one or two people in my list that couldn't resist, couldn't leave it alone.
They just had to go and touch that button.
Yep.
And you know what it boils down to is these same people that rise to the bait every time. And same thing on my wall. It's the same people every time. They rise to the bait because they really, really, really are insecure in their beliefs and in their truths. Mm-hmm. And they got to get it out there because they got to convince at least one person that their truth is universal truth.
Yeah, well, when you argue on the internet, everybody loses.
That is true. That is very, very true.
All right. So you have had an amazing life. Like, your careers have spanned so many different arenas. It's hard to really pick a point of to where to begin. But I'm going to go with one of the things that I think is the more interesting, is the fact that you were a bounty hunter.
I was, and still hunt. But
still?
I do, but I do it on the internet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense. It's probably a lot easier to find people on the internet.
Well, and see, in Florida, I can't legally hunt without being a bail bondsman. And my philosophy is this: why do I want to go get these little jitterbugs out of jail and then have to go find them?
Right.
I'd just rather go find them.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's that's a weird rule to have those. Like, why? But is that the case for a lot of states, though?
Mostly Florida, and it's because the bail bondsmen have such a lobbying effect in Tallahassee. They didn't want hunters to be able to work independently in Georgia. If I am an independent contractor, I could work for several different bonding companies, or I could choose to work for one bonding company.
Okay.
But down here, in order to hunt, you do have to be a bonding company. And I don't want to be a bond. I don't want that 3:00 call to go get Joe Blowout and then him decide to go to ground and then me have to get in my truck and go find him and take his little happy butt back to jail.
Yeah, well,
that would not end well for him.
A lot of risk and liability too as being a bail bondsman.
Yeah, because if you've got somebody out there that you've bonded out on $150,000 bond and they don't show up, you've only got 45 days to find those little suckers, and then you've got to pay that to the courts, the whole $145,000. So no.
So when did you get started as a bounty hunter?
When I was 54 years old.
Not even young. Well, I mean, 54 is young, but like not, you would figure most people would want to get into bounty hunting when they're like in their late 20s, early 30s. No, Yvonne's like, no, I'm 54. Let's do it.
Well, you gotta understand, when I was a wee child and watched Have Gun Will Travel and all that other stuff that involved bounty hunting, that's something I wanted to do. But I grew up in an era where if I'd done that when I was in my 20s, I would have been laughed out of the state because women couldn't even get on the police force in Georgia at that time.
Funny
so I said, watch this, 54, why not?
It's funny how time seems to be repeating itself. But that's amazing. Like, why? What made you want to get into bounty hunting?
Watching Have Gun Will Travel and all of the shows, all of the old 1950s and early 60s shows that showed these characters as going after the bad guy. I didn't want to be a cop because cops are restricted. To me, it's the chase. It's the knowing that these little guys don't understand that they're not smarter than we are. And so they stay within a 25-mile radius and think they've gone to ground. But there's ways to find them, and it's the finding them, it's the hunting for them. It's not going and picking them up. That's kind of anticlimactic because they go, okay, I'm done. It's running them down.
The thrill of the hunt.
Exactly.
Well, I guess my question is like, okay, you said as a wee child you were watching these shows, and there's a gap between wee child and 54. What was that linchpin moment at 54 that you were like, you know what, I'm gonna do this?
Well, I was getting a divorce and decided to go to college and get a degree in criminal justice. And part of the criteria for being a hunter is having a degree in criminal justice. And I was too old to get on the police force. So I said, okay, let's do this. Why not?
So I don't think that's the same route most people would have taken, but it is definitely a route and a very interesting one. That at 54 years old, getting a divorce and getting my degree, hey, fuck it, let's be a bounty hunter too.
Why not? But one thing that I've learned in my old age is if someone has a dream and they say, well, I wanted to do this, but now I'm too old, I look at them and go, says who? Are you still breathing? Well, yeah. Are you still in fairly good health? Well, yeah. Are you still walking around? Well, yeah. Does your mind still function on a reasonable level? Well, yeah. So what's stopping you? How bad do you want it?
Yeah, that last one, does your mind still function? I'm sure a few people would question mine, but you know.
Mine too, but who cares?
And I'm going to tell you what, there are a few things that I am too old to do at this point, one of which is help people move.
Yeah.
I'm too old to be lifting sofas.
My daughter and my son-in-law and I moved me literally out of a 2,200 square foot house into a 1,200 square foot house, loaded 2 pods and a U-Haul it in my truck multiple times, and we did it alone. And I'm 71 now.
Yeah, I could still do it. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want to.
No, I think next time I'll hire a mover.
Mm-hmm. I've told Ollie, because like we rent the house that we're in because we had moved back to Michigan and shortly before my mom passed, and so we're in the same house and just paying the rent and whatnot. And I told her, I was like, this is it. You know, if you want to get our own place, fine. I'm not lifting a finger no more to move. I'm done. I ain't doing it. I don't like it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. we got to have enough money for first and last month, or for the to make the down payment on the mortgage and whatnot, and to hire movers.
There you go. It'll cost you about 10 grand.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have a problem packing it up as long as I can find somebody who's willing to put it into the truck, drive it to where I need it to do, and pull it out of the truck. That's it. It probably still costs me about 10 grand these days.
It will.
But
Will. Yep, it will.
I usually
try. So worth it.
I usually try to keep young friends. I got beer and pizza. You got a truck. So, how many bounties have you ran down over the course of your life, from 54 till yesterday?
I would say several hundred.
Any exciting ones? I mean, I know the thrill of the hunt is there, so they're all to some extent exciting. But
the most exciting one was when I was still in Georgia, and there was this one guy. We had less than 10 days to find him, and he kept evading us, and I kept calling all of his contacts. Now, when someone misses their first appearance and we get their jacket, there's usually 5 or 6 names and phone numbers. It's the person that bonded them out, the mother, the wife, the ex-wife, the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend, the best friend.
Known associates.
Right. So I start going down the list, and of course, nobody's seen this guy. And nobody wants to talk to me. And so the first phone call, I'm very cordial because I was in collections for 30 years. And the first phone call, I'm pretty Southern polite. Second phone call, I'm a little bit stronger. Well, by the third phone call, I'm not so strong. Well, there was this particular guy, there was this phone number that never answered until the last phone call. And when I called him, the guy said, "Oh yeah, I know this guy. He's the one that's responsible for my ex-wife and my son being in jail on drug charges." I said, "Oh, do tell." He said, "Yeah, my wife is down south in Clayton County Jail, and he goes to see her every Tuesday." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What's your ex-wife's name?" So he told me. So I called down to the jail, and I told the jailer, I said, "My 2 partners will be down there at 2:00 to pick up this guy." I says, "You realize that he's a convicted felon?" She said, "Well, we don't run backgrounds when they come visit. We just ask for their driver's license." I said, "Well, you might want to reassess that."
Mm-hmm.
So I called my 2 partners, and they went in the parking lot. And at 1:45, he hadn't showed up. At 2:05, he hadn't showed up. At 2:00, he hadn't showed up. But at 2:05, he goes walking up the back steps to go into the jail to visit his girlfriend. Well, they got out of the car and walked up behind him and said, "You're going to miss your visit today. We've got somebody that wants to talk to you." So they call me and put him on the phone. I said, "You can run, but you can never hide." And most of the time, what I tell if I can't get any cooperation, the person that bonds them out, that posts the bond, the 10%, I'll finally get them on the phone and say, "Okay, look, if you don't want to tell me where Joe Blow is, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But understand, my judge doesn't care what body's in front of him. He just wants a body. So we'll be to your house in about 10 minutes, and we'll take you to go see the judge. And you can explain to the judge why you won't give your friend up, and you can spend the night in jail. Oh, he's over at so-and-so's house."
Yeah, real quick.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, that was the most fun one.
Now, you also are a very accomplished writer.
I am.
In fact, your writing is how you and I first ended up connecting. I was doing just this, doing interviews and whatnot, and we ran across each other, and I really enjoy the writing. I do gotta ask, why true crime? I mean, other than the fact that you have the degree in criminology.
2 reasons. One, when someone is murdered, and murder is not pretty. When the story is told, it's not told about the victim. The victim is sort of like a byproduct. The criminal gets glorified. The criminal gets excuses made for their behavior. The criminal becomes the hero, and the victim is sort of forgotten. My late husband was a chief investigator for the state attorney's office in the 19th Judicial Circuit where we lived. And he told me a story about these young girls that had been brutally tortured and murdered, and completely, nobody even knew about them. That's how far back it went, and people have forgotten about them. And it affected him in such a way, I said, I have to write the story. So I did, and come to find out, other people had tried to write a story, but the killer threatened to sue. Well, the killer's now dead, been dead since 99. So in my thought process, it was time to write the story. And that story has been impacted throughout the world. Because of that story, the girls and I have been on television 7 times, 3 times in Europe.
How is the criminal even able to say that he could sue? I thought they weren't allowed, and this is, you know, my own naivety, I guess. But I thought criminals weren't allowed to like profit or benefit in any way, shape, or form from the story of their crimes.
That's if they write the book.
Well, if someone else writes it and they try to sue, wouldn't they be benefiting from it?
They would, but what this particular criminal did is, because people were afraid of him, he could intimidate with his words. And he appealed his conviction 10 times until the judge finally said, this is it, no more, I'm done with you, do not show back up in my courtroom, we're not doing any more appeals. But everybody that tried to write the story or tried to put that out there, he intimidated them to the point that they became afraid to even try it. But then I have no fear. What are you going to do? Kill me?
Yeah.
Sue me? Try it. Because if I have permission, and the thing, what he negated to understand is everything was public record. So you don't really need the family's permission, because the trial, the murder, it was all already public record in the court system and in newspapers and in transcripts. So he really did not have a leg to stand on. But he intimidated them, and people just said, okay, forget it, we'll move on, it's not worth it. To me, it was worth it.
Now, which story of yours was this?
That was Silent Scream, Gerard Schaefer.
Okay, because I know you've written a ton of books.
I have.
I know we worked together, at least on the commercial, for promoting the Mad Hatter.
The Mad Hatter, yes.
Which that's one of my favorites, just because it deals with that time period of Jack the Ripper and, you know, everything that's going on.
That was a historical fiction that took me 4 years to research and write. And it brings in Jack the Ripper as a minor character, but the story itself is about a gentleman that made hats, and because of that Victorian time period and the mercury they had to use, he literally became a Mad Hatter.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the Jack the Ripper thing is just what drew me in, because it's in that time period. It's the framework, essentially.
It is the framework of the story, because I had a map of Whitechapel during 1888, and some of the scenes in the book and some of the characters in the book came from Whitechapel and were his victims. So it all blended into one thing. You never know who the real criminal is until the end of the book, or do you?
I was going to say, that's a good story. If at the end of the book you're still questioning, you've done your job.
Exactly. Thanks.
Now, I'm sure you're aware they think they have finally figured out who Jack the Ripper was through DNA testing and tracked it back. I guess he was a butcher. And that's crazy, though. I remember seeing a story not too long ago. It was like one of those DNA testing kits that everybody was like just giving their information away freely with. And apparently they got a hold of it and still had a bit of DNA from way back when, and they did the testing and they found the family line and found it back. And like, the future is wild, man.
It is. Now, but the thing is, I don't know how they can say with 100% accuracy of who it was, because you've got to remember the chain of evidence was not a chain of evidence, and I'm sure all of the evidence was corrupted the day they found everything, and down through the years. Who knows how many hands touched that?
Well, if I remember correctly in the story, the person that they suspect it to be was actually a suspect.
Yes, there was a butcher who was a suspect.
Yeah, on the list. And yeah, you're right with chain of command, but I don't know. They managed to find an answer. I'm gonna have to dig that story up and see if I can get it posted with this show too, or this interview, because it really is interesting the way they went about finding.
Well, and Jack the Ripper, when I was in college, one of my classes, we had to do a term paper on a serial killer. Well, because I was the oldest person in the class, I decided to go a different route. I didn't do a Ted Bundy or any of the other known serial killers. I went all the way back to 1888. And when I turned my term paper in, my professor said, I knew if anybody was going to do it, it was going to be you. So I had all of the research from that term paper when I decided to do the book. I kept it all these years. So that's how I incorporated that into the storyline, and still left people wondering who was it and how and what happened, and is he still out there?
Yeah. I know for the longest time there were those that suspected that Jack the Ripper and H.H. Holmes were either one and the same or compatriots. Like, yep. they spoke to each other and whatnot.
And it's possible they did. But H.H. Holmes, of course, came to America and committed his own set of criminal activity.
Yeah, which I know we're not supposed to glorify serial killers and murderers and stuff like that, but H.H. Holmes, man, he took it to another level.
He did. He really did.
Like, again, we're not supposed to glorify them, but it was impressive the amount of stuff that he was able to pull off, and with the building of the hotel and constantly swapping out contractors, and everybody only knew their little piece and whatnot. Like, the mind that was needed to organize and orchestrate all that man could have done anything with his life, but he chose to be a murderer.
He was a master manipulator. He was a genius, and he had no conscience.
So, corporate business person. Got it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, Yvonne, what is your favorite book out of your library that you've written?
Oh my goodness, they're all my favorites, but I have to say the one that set me on this path is the one that I started when I was in my 40s. And of course, it's about my brother. You and I have talked about him many times. And the fact that he believed he could, so he did. When I was in school, all of my teachers said, you can't, so I didn't. I couldn't write, I couldn't draw, I couldn't paint, all because I couldn't do math. Like, that was really what I needed to understand in order to write and to paint. And if they just incorporated all of my talents into a math equation, I might have got it. But because my little brother, who was 13 months younger than me and who was mentally and physically challenged, did because he could, I decided to write his story because I knew there would become a time when all of his siblings would be gone, all the grandchildren would be gone, the great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren would have heard of him, might have been around him, but they didn't know him. And I wanted his legacy of failure is never not an option to always be out there. And that is the one that keeps me going when I'm ready to give up.
Well, and it's a solid life lesson too. Like, I don't know, people seem to be so easy to give up these days on anything. It
True.
doesn't matter what it is. People just don't they don't have the same drive. And some of that could be said because, life does a really good job of beating us down, at every turn. And perseverance is definitely a learned skill.
It is, unless you're born with it. And Stanley was born with it, because Stanley was never supposed to do what he did, even as a baby. But he did it because he could. And he never allowed outside forces to tell him he couldn't. He told us one time he started to work at Publix, and he told the manager of Publix that he didn't want to be in janitorial services anymore, because he'd been in janitorial services from the time he went out into a public job. And the manager said, well, what do you want to do? He says, I want to stock. The manager said, okay. So for 20 years, my brother, who can't read or write beyond a first grade level, pulled stuff off the trucks and stocked the store shelves. He wasn't supposed to be able to do that, but he wanted to, and he wanted it bad enough. He used to tell my mother and myself that he wanted to be a store manager. We never said you can't. What we said was, well, Stanley, it might be a greater challenge for you. So what you need to do is ask the department heads if you can come and work in their sections and learn their sections. And that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
He knew on some level he could never do it. He knew he did not have the mental or physical capacity to perform that job, but it didn't stop him from dreaming.
Well, aside from those that are mentally or physically handicapped, we as a society are very keen and quick to do negative self-talk, and not just with not self-talk, but negative talk in general with our conversations and whatnot. We tend to focus on what you can't do rather than how you could do it.
You're right.
And I think that's something that we as a people need to work on and try to change. It's one of the things, like I'm sure you've seen, the show posts of what recently. Every so often there's an Unfiltered Odd episode where I am just fed the hell up and can't just keep doing the monkey dance anymore. I like the distraction. I can't do that. I have to, it's my pressure release valve. And one of the big things that I've tried to make sure that I do is that I'm not just bitching, I'm providing some sort of suggestion or solution or possible solution. Because I feel if you're just complaining about stuff, you're not doing anything.
Well, and if you're just complaining about stuff, they become empty words. And after a time, people do not pay attention to something that you might say that might be beneficial to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for a manager one time, and he said, if you bring me a problem, bring me 2 possible solutions.
That's
they
fair.
might not be the solutions he needs, but you were bringing a solution to a potential problem. And you're right. We are so busy tearing our own selves down that the white noise around us of other people saying, well, you can't do this, because when someone says that, it means they can't do it because they're projecting their insecurities on us. And I refuse to allow that to happen. When somebody says, well, my mother said, Yvonne, why do you want to be a bounty hunter? You can get killed. And my comeback to her was, Mother, they can only kill me once, and I can go out here on the street and get hit by a truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yvonne, you can't write because you can't string 2 sentences together. No, I can put 2 sentences together very well. That is your problem. Don't make it a me problem.
Yeah. I am not responsible for your misunderstanding what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Well, case in point, recently we did an episode about what's going on in the country as far as women's rights and things like that. And I was pissed, because I had to sit there and watch my wife feel like, she didn't matter. And I was seeing people on social media that they were just bitching, and rightly so. Don't get me wrong. They have every right to bitch. But the problem is like you said, it just becomes noise at that point because nobody could think of a solution on how to fix things. Everybody was like, well, we'll go protest. Well, protesting is dangerous now. If you're not being picked off by people that disagree with you with trucks or whatever, you've got the police force that's looking to crack heads most of the time. So protesting has become more dangerous. Okay, a lot of people are disenfranchised and feel voting doesn't work anymore. Why vote? Well, okay, I understand and can see where you're coming from. All right, so you don't want those two solutions. The only thing that I was left to come up with was file a human rights violation with the UN. It's probably not going to work, but it's something we haven't tried before.
There is that.
And that was the big thing, is like, that's why that Friday I didn't do a show, because I was too angry and all of the solutions I had were aggressive and violent. And that does no good.
The writer said, if you can keep your head about you while all others are losing theirs, you will be a man, my son.
Yeah, well, I did my best, and I even went so far as I provided a pre-written letter to the UN, because I know people don't like putting in effort. Okay, you can write the UN. Now you've got people staring at a blank page, that frightening thing for every writer. And so I took the time and pre-wrote a letter for them to send. And I've been told that of quite a few people have sent it. So I'm happy that I was able to come up with some sort of workable suggestion. And I wish we saw more of that. It's easy to complain, but it takes a lot more work to put an actionable effort out into the world.
And therein lies the cog that is missing from the wheel. People generally are lazy-minded. They want to complain because that's the easy thing to do. However, they don't want to work toward a solution, because that requires an effort, not only an effort, but a commitment. We hear people say, well, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. Well, I go back to Yoda. And Yoda says, do or do not, there is no try, because try is not a commitment. You're either going to do it, which is a commitment, or you're not going to do it, which is a commitment. And if someone says, well, I'm not going to do this, I respect them because they're committed.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone says, well, I will try, I'm going, no. You're not committed either way. You're sitting on a fence to see which way the wind blows.
I find myself fence sitting a lot, but not because I'm waiting to see which way the wind blows, but I see both sides of the argument too often, and it's very hard to pick a side that's right. There's some things that, it's just very clear. There's a right and a wrong, but there's a lot of things, especially, in daily life and in our country and society, that I find myself sitting there like, okay, I get it, but their argument is valid as well. And it's like, it's like the whole religion thing that you and I have talked about before, is like everybody, I am no longer atheist. I am more agnostic than anything else these days. And what it comes down to for me is I see that all these religions are bickering about the differences, except there are way more similarities that they should be paying attention to.
Agreed. I have no argument for that, because I agree with you on that level.
Yeah.
And before the show, we talked about religion and faith. Religion is a theology. Mm-hmm. Faith is something we believe in, even if we can't see it. And I think you and I've talked about this before. We don't see the wind. We see the effects of the wind. Mm-hmm. So I have faith that there's wind out there.
Yeah.
we don't see many things, but we know they're out there. And when people spin their wheels over a quote unquote religious debate, because like you say, they want to prove their point, that's when I say, look, we all have free will. We all have free will to believe what we choose. And this is what I used to tell my children. You can do, say, or believe anything you want to, but understand for everything that you do, say, or believe, there are consequences.
Yeah, you're free. That's yeah, I love that one because they like the freedom of speech. I mean, a lot of people thinks that, you know, they're allowed to say and do whatever they want, and to an extent you are correct, but you are not free from consequences.
No, you are not.
And you must make sure that you are aware of all the consequences that could be besought to you, that will come of whatever your actions or words say.
You just tell the kids, whatever you do today, you better be able to sleep on it and get up and live with it tomorrow.
I think my grandfather was a little more colorful with it. Don't let your mouth write a check your ass can't cash.
That one too.
All right. So we've covered a little bit of bounty hunting. We've covered your books a little bit. You are also an advocate against CPS.
I am.
And would you like to explain how that came to be?
That came to be because my youngest daughter had her 3 daughters taken in the state of Georgia, in the county of Jackson, all because she was poor. Now you have to understand, and before these people get their knickers in a twist, they need to do their homework. CPS is funded by state and federal monies.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from the federal government, it goes to the state, then it goes to each individual county, then it goes to each individual office, and then it is dispersed into the operating account of those offices. You have supervisors, you have peons. Those people are paid out of those funds. When funding starts slowing down, you will see an uptick in the removal of children, because when a child is removed from the home, that particular office automatically gets a bonus. The supervisor gets a $5,000 bonus, and the caseworker gets a $3,000 bonus right off the top. When those children are adopted out, the adoptive people they are paid $40,000 a child. That is tax free. They do not have to claim any of that money for those children from day one on their taxes.
Now, this is state of Georgia, but I would imagine it's similar in other states.
It's nationwide.
Okay.
This is nationwide. They do not have to pay not one dime of taxes on any of that money. They get money for school clothes. They get money for food. They get money for travel. They get money for birthday. They get money for Christmas. They get money for doctor's expenses, for medications, for books.
Roughly everything that could come up in a child's life.
Correct. Now, when you remove a child from its parent because that parent is simply poor, and then you have the caseworker say, oh, don't worry, when they're 18, they will find you. That caseworker is an idiot.
And an asshole.
Because the damage is done.
Yeah.
Because the person who winds up with that child fills that child's head with lies, misinformation, and totally turns it against its birth mother. This happened to my daughter. And so when that child at 18 decides to come looking for its birth mother, it already has a preconceived idea of the birth mother and how much they hate them and how much they want to blame them because they were taken away. And you cannot get those years back. You cannot undo the damage. And instead of taking these children, they need to revamp the system so that the children stay with their parent and they help that parent to maybe get a better job, a better place to live.
Yeah, if they're throwing away $40,000, I'm going to assume, is that $40,000 in one shot or a year?
When they adopt that child, They get $40,000 boom like that.
Okay, why are okay. All right, hold on. Cuz my brain meat just slammed into the back of my skull because like someone hit the brakes real quick on it. If they can afford to toss $40,000 at an adoptive parent, why is it they can't afford then to toss that same money at a mother like your daughter who is just simply poor?
Because they don't get paid from the federal government for the removal of that child. The idea is not to, even though they preach reunification, the idea is not to reunify, because if they reunify, then they don't get a bonus.
Oh yeah, it's a business, just like our prison system. It's
correct.
It's business.
And
Turnover.
In the process, they not only destroy that mother, they destroy the children and their relationship with their mother. I've watched my daughter just fall to the floor because she is so broken. And no matter what my daughter did, she had 13 caseworkers and 14 case plans. Every time she got to the last part of a case plan, they changed caseworkers and started all over. It's a rat in a wheel thing.
Yeah.
And the idea is to break the parent down. So the parent says, look, I'm done. Just do what you got to do. I mentally and emotionally can't do this anymore.
Yeah, they keep moving the finish line.
Right. There. In the meantime, they're poisoning the children's, saying, well, your mother did this and your mother did that and your mother doesn't love you. And it's emotional reprogramming. And the younger they get them, the better they like it.
Well, I mean, you're well aware of situations that I've been involved in. It's not exactly the same, but it's close enough. I know how shitty that can be. It's
legal kidnapping and child trafficking. And then when they put these children in these other homes, the horror stories.
Oh yeah.
I have got more case files on children that have been tortured and murdered in adoptive parents' homes. One happened down in Miami and it made me sick.
So I used to work, I lived in Tucson for a little bit.
Right.
I used to work at a psych and substance hospital in Tucson, a crisis center.
Right.
They took care of both adults and children. I loved working the kids ward. I tried to be the person that I wished I would have had when I was a kid going through stuff. And the stories and things that you would hear, there was literally one mother that dropped her child off at the hospital so she could go on vacation. She wanted to leave for 3 weeks, so she dropped the kid off at the hospital knowing that he could stay there.
See, that mother should have been put in jail.
Right? But she lied, and, we knew she was lying. We couldn't prove it, but, but you can't prove it.
Right.
And she lied and said, oh, well, he did this and he did that, and I can't deal with it. So, I need to drop him off here. And then she dipped. She was gone for 2 weeks.
I want to strangle that mother, because children are born for a reason. They are a gift and there's a purpose for them. And when we as humans make the decision, Samantha's case was different. Samantha loved those children. That child was working 2 jobs to support her kids.
I know it's not always the case, but I know what kind of woman you are, and I'm going to assume that your children are fairly well adjusted and decent.
Yes.
I know it's not always the case, because there's really good parents out there.
They would not be alive today if they were not.
Right. Her mom was a bounty hunter. I'll beat your ass. Like, act right.
Now they would have ceased life as they currently knew it.
Yeah.
But yeah, what happened is Samantha married someone she'd known for 20 plus years, and he had 4 children. The 2 little ones are on the autism spectrum. She has fought for those kids and fought for those kids and fought for those kids to get them the help they needed. Does that sound like a mother who's neglected her own children? No.
No. But like I said, I know CPS, it's just a business. That's all it is.
And it's a crooked business at that.
Show me a business that isn't crooked. Show me a business that's making a lot of money that isn't crooked.
There is that.
I had to redefine that because you and I technically run businesses, but we don't make that kind of money.
No. And I do have a set of morals.
Yeah, that seems to be in short supply in a lot of arenas these days too, is like morality or morals have been twisted and skewed.
Well, people need justification for their misbehavior.
Just don't misbehave.
So they say, well, if I just do this little thing and it'll be okay. Well, this little thing is like a seed. It makes a bigger thing and then a bigger thing and then and pretty soon it's out of control.
Yep. A butterfly flapping its wings here can cause a tsunami in Japan.
You're right.
And as ridiculous as that concept sounds, it is true. The actions that we do, think of it like this. We talk about trying to be kinder to one another. Random acts of kindness are something that we talk about a lot on the show, and it doesn't have to be anything major. Just simply opening the door for somebody, or like just something nice. You are nice to one person, that person feels a little bit better, and maybe they go out and be nice to somebody, or they're nice to two people.
Let's talk about what happened for the show. What I told your wife, Ollie, before the show, I meant it.
I didn't hear it because she had the headphones.
What I told her, I said, is do not allow anyone to steal your joy or your beauty, because you have both without your permission.
Mm-hmm.
And I make it a point to tell women that they are beautiful and that nobody has their permission to steal that beauty. And if they give them that permission, then they are hurting themselves. And when I hear women say, well, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm too this, I'm too that, I immediately say, no, you're not. You're beautiful, and you need to embrace that beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And when men open the door for me, the first thing I say to them is, you know what? It gives me great joy when a man opens the door for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's male or female. I will hold the door for almost anyone, like going to the gas station to get cigarettes or whatnot. If I'm on my way out and someone's walking in, I will step to the side and hold the door open for them. It's not a matter of anything other than kindness and respect for another human being.
Exactly. Well, you have those women out there that don't want men. Oh, that I can open my own door. Well, yeah, I can open my own door too. I take care of myself very well. But when somebody is kind enough or respectful enough because of my gender or because I'm there first or for whatever reason they're using, it gives me joy that they thought enough to do that.
Yeah, well, I had one the other day. I was walking to the door at the gas station, and this woman was walking in, and I stopped. And like, I didn't open the door for her because she had already made it to the door and was touching it and pushing it open, but I stopped. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I should have let you go. And I was like, no, you made it to the door first. And I was like, I was just being respectful. And she's like, you're fine. And I was like, I know, I got a mirror, and went on my way.
What we do, what people don't realize is everybody we encounter, friend, foe, stranger, it doesn't matter. Everybody we encounter, we leave a part of who we are. And I mean, really who we are with that person. They leave a part of them with us. So we become a part of each other in a moment. And the last thing that a stranger that sees me that I want them to remember, or even a friend that I want them to remember about me, is I was kind to them in that moment. And they could have been on the verge of committing suicide or leaving a maid or having a breakdown. But in that moment, their thought process switched gears and they knew that they had an opportunity to be better, do better, change their course of action.
Well, I like to screw with people too and remind them that, you think you're so unique, but your entire personality and self is just an amalgamation of everyone that you've come in contact with over the course of your life.
And that is true.
You didn't necessarily build who you are. Society built who you are. Your interactions, your parents built who you are, your friends built who you are, your enemies built who you are, like everything. You know, and yes, the configuration may seem unique, but realistically, you're no different than anybody else.
You're unique to you. Just like when I was in school, I couldn't write and I couldn't paint. Well, let's see. I write, I paint, I do photography. I have 2 radio stations, 2 podcasts, been on television 7 times, traveled around the world, drive a Silverado that I get looks from men going, whose truck is that?
Mine.
Yeah, on the back of my truck, it says, yes, boys, this is my truck.
Well, let's talk about the podcast and the radio, you know, because that you are you still doing it through Blog Talk?
I do the Off the Chain through Blog Talk. The other 2 I do offradio.com and Live 365 and then podcast.co. They're my faith-based radio stations and podcasts that goes out all over the world.
Now, when you say faith-based, I'm assuming religion and, you know.
Yes.
Jesus and friends.
Yes. And most people are going, what is she talking about? Yeah.
Well, but you've always had a fairly level head and a good sense about you, and that's one of the things that I've always respected.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned painting as well. Now, has painting always been there? Like I seem that once your husband, I seem to remember that once your husband passed, that's when you really started to get into painting.
I did, and that was 3.5 years ago, because after he died, being in the house grieving was not healthy. I needed an outlet, something that made me go, because it would have been real easy just to stay in my house and say, leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered. So I made myself go to art classes. I made myself find an outlet, and here we are now.
Yeah, I've seen your work and I think it's very good. I mean, I'm not an art critic, so I just know what I like.
Thank you very, very much.
Now, what are you working on? Any pieces or books right now?
I am actually. I'm working on a short story called the Man in the Top Hat for the anthology for Halloween through AMR Publishing. I've been writing for them for a minute. She does a lot of anthologies and she gets them out a year ahead of time. And so when I finish one, I start on another one. And then I've started on 2 books that are still in the rough draft stage. I have no idea where they're going. I don't know where they came from, but they're sitting there waiting and screaming, finish me, please. Finish me, please. But I got to stop traveling first. I'm traveling way too much.
Well, I mean, if you sit still, you start growing moss, right?
Well, there is that.
Yeah. Well, and for those of you that don't know that are seeing this, Yvonne is part of the reason why I was finally able to get my ass in gear and publish my own short story. Is, you know, she kept needling at me and like, you should do it. You should do it. You keep talking about it, but you won't do it. And finally I sat down and was like, okay, leave me alone. I did it.
Well, you know what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And my philosophy is if you're going to talk the talk, you better be willing to walk the walk, because anybody can talk the talk.
Now
that's what I tell people that say, well, I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to do something else. And I'm going, what is stopping you? Well, when somebody says, well, I don't have time. Excuse me, you have the same 24 hours in a day that I have. What is your problem?
Currently, I am filling that 24 hours in a day with way too much crap already.
So what's not important, cut it off.
Unfortunately, it's all important at this point. I'm desperate to make time for certain things because, like, I'm a one-man show, you know that. I'm the graphic editor, I'm the web designer, I'm the video editor, I'm the guy that runs down and gets all the interviews and stuff. Like, I do everything. And in order to make time for writing more, which I do have a story that, in the rare occasion that I find an hour or 2 hours that aren't already dog-eared for something I've been working on. I'm
Excellent.
actually expanding upon the short story that I wrote, and continuing a universe. But yeah, in order to actually put the time and effort that it needs, I would have to stop doing this, and I like this more.
And there is, but even if it's 5 or 10, even if you write a sentence a day,
Yep.
And this is what I tell people that want to write and don't know how to get started. Well, I need to do this, and I said, look, if your desire is to write a sentence a day. Don't edit it. Don't think about sentence construction. Don't think about plot twists. Just write. The going back and working on it and finishing out is later. If you've got 5 minutes and something pops in, go write it real quick.
I took that advice and knocked out that entire short story. I want to say it's somewhere around 20 pages or something like that. I knocked out that entire short story in a day. Like, I literally, I woke up that morning, I was like, I should do it. I don't have anything else to do. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I should go do it. And I sat down, and the sun had just come up. And when I was done, the sun had just gone down, and I didn't even realize it. Like, Ollie had brought me breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I was sitting at my desk just writing away, and like, oh, there's food here. Like, she's like, food just magically appeared. Then I got done, and I walked out of the office, and she was like, you've been in there all day. And I looked around, and I was like, no, I just sat down for like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
She's like, no, it's been like 5 hours, 10 hours, somewhere in there. And like, I was like, oh, well, I did it. I'm done.
See? And then going back and doing the edits is easy then.
No, I let someone else do that.
Well, see, wise man you are.
No, because here's the thing. Like, I realized, like, with the graphic design and stuff, you stare at something too long, you lose.
It's a blur.
Yeah, you lose all semblance of structure, and it's like, okay, I just spent like 10 hours writing this. I know it needs edits. I cannot do them.
Yeah, I don't do my own edits because my brain says something, and by the time it gets to my fingers, it's something else. I've had one of my editors come and say, Yvonne, I'm going to read this to you. Did you mean to write this way? And I will go, no, I didn't write that way. Oh, but you did. And yeah, I did.
I didn't mean it that way. I'm pretty sure there should have been some punctuation in there so the reader could have like take a breath, but
or something. Yeah.
I don't have to breathe in my head, and that's where it all came from.
Well, when you have 20,000 different voices and 20 different storylines running around in your head on any given day, and they're all arguing with each other trying to get out, it's bound to happen.
Well, yeah. Well, the book that I'm working on, I actually have 2 books in mind to follow up that short story. And I sit down to write one of them, and I start getting ideas for the other one. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So I move over and start writing the ideas for that one, and the ideas for the other one start popping up. And I'm like, guys, come on. Can we get it together a little bit?
The struggle is real.
Yeah.
The struggle is real. I feel your pain.
That's why I much prefer to play with my microphone and technology and stuff. I'm talking, the voices are quiet.
Mine are never quiet. Even when I'm working on photographs, the voices are never quiet. I now have 3 laptops.
I was just saying, photography is not something that I was aware that you were into.
Oh yeah, I am. I've been doing that for off and on for the last 40 years, but it's just been in the last 7-8 years that I do it more often. And in fact, I'm going to Oklahoma City next month to photograph an event. Saturday, I did a wedding. So yeah, I just added that to my quiver. Why not?
You're going to need a tombstone that's probably like 10 feet tall, right? To, when they put in wife, mother, friend, they're going to need the space to fill in everything.
Well, you know what happens if I get bored and unsupervised, I get in trouble.
Yeah. No, so, I know that well.
And to me, being a photographer, somebody told me one time, I can take a photo. Yeah, well, anybody can take a photo. But in order to be a photographer, when you see something, you have to be able to see a story.
Mhm.
And you have to be able to make, especially if you're doing people, you have to make the person that's in front of your camera not realize that you're actually taking that photograph.
Yeah, you got to catch them in the moment, so
Right.
to speak.
And most people, when they take a photo, do one shot. Well, once that moment's gone, you can't get it back. So I do anywhere from 5 to 10 shots, and my camera's always clicking. And somebody asked me why I did that. I said, because your expression can change in the blink of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
So when I shot this wedding, the groom, I had photographed him and his fiance before at an event we had down at our clubhouse. And he said, well, I don't like having my picture taken. And I said, Joe, when your wedding happens, there will be lots of photographs of you. So let's get comfortable now. And so at the reception, I told him, thank you for giving me the opportunity to shoot their wedding. He said, Yvonne, you made it so easy. He said, I didn't even realize you were doing the photographs because you just put me so at ease. Mm-hmm. That's the key. That's the difference in taking a picture and being a photographer.
Yep. And I am not a photographer. I don't, no, give me the pictures to mess with. You know, I can take whatever you do and make it look as like you saw it in your head, but I can't take a picture to save my life. My wife actually has a pretty good eye for photography, and we've got her a semi decent camera that she plays with from time to time, but I've noticed women are better at it.
Well, because I am already an artist and an author, I see things differently through my lens. I see stories. I catch people when they're not expecting it. And some of the best photos that I've taken have been when people were not posing. The former national president of the JCI Senate said that her favorite photo that I took of her was when she was looking out over a balcony. It was the year end, and we were getting ready for the banquet, and her mother's got dementia, her father's sick, and she was standing there and reflecting, and the expression that I got on her face, she said, Yvonne, that's my favorite photo of me that you took. She says, every time I see that photo, I knew exactly what I was thinking, why I was thinking about it, and how I felt. That is an honor.
Yeah. All right. So with everything that you do, what do you do in your downtime? Like, how do you unwind?
What's that?
I kind of figured. Yeah.
Even if I'm watching television or playing a game on my iPad, my brain does not shut down.
I understand all too well.
At 1:00 this morning, I was on my computer trying to fight with Photoshop and Lightroom because I am determined they are not going to beat me. I am going to figure out how to make them work for me if it's the last thing I do.
I know you've already paid for both of those, but if you do get too frustrated and you're looking for a better program, I do know of one. It's what I use.
What do you use?
I use a series of programs from Serif, Affinity Designer, Affinity Publisher, and Affinity Photographer.
I have the trial on my computer. That's my next one to play with.
Affinity is a very good program, and it doesn't have the monthly fee that Adobe products do.
Well, the thing with Photoshop and Lightroom is when they developed it, the developers did not make it user friendly. Nope. There's too many steps, and it's aggravating.
And Affinity is more user friendly. I am very intelligent, and when I tried my hand at Photoshop, I understand that you have to think in layers, but everything felt backwards and convoluted, and I was just like, nah, I'm good.
And I can't even get the layers to lay right, and that aggravates me. And I'm about done with it again, and I'm about ready to tell them what they can do with it and pull it off all three of. See, I have all three of my computers set up with the same programs because I travel with one and I leave two at the house. And if one goes down, I've still got two that are mirror images of the other one, and they're all on any given day at any given time. And so I have affinity on all of them, but I'm the more I play with it, that I think I'm going to that one. And I like in Pixo too. I have fun within Pixo. And what I do is I blend all the different programs into one finished product.
Yeah, that's what I do the same. So I'll run things through Affinity Designer, and then I'll make some tweaks and stuff in Photo. And then if I need to like make a flyer format or something like that, then I'll run it through Publisher. So yeah, I'm very much the same way. It's three products to create one finished quality design.
And I shot a wedding last April, and I took in Pixo and was playing around with it and took one of the photographs of the bride. And when I was finished with that and I posted it, it was absolutely stunning. In fact, one of my friends said, Yvonne, she looks like she is just stepped out of a fantasy book of a fantasy story because of the background and the way that it all came together. So that made my heart sing.
All right, Yvonne, we have made it through the main part of the interview. Now, I have two segments that I have to get out before the end of this interview. And the first one, I'm going to ask you, Miss Yvonne, tell me a story.
Tell you a story. There was a little girl who had no self-confidence. She was afraid of everything. From the day she was born, she was afraid of everything. She did not feel like she fit anywhere. She didn't fit in her family. She didn't fit in school. She didn't fit with friends because there were expectations that she could not fulfill, because this little girl marched not only to her own drummer, but to her own band. So for years and years and years and years, this little girl believed she was not good enough. She was not good enough for anything. She couldn't do anything. Until one day she woke up and decided it's time to stop trying to please everybody else and look inward and see what gives you joy, to understand what gives you the ability to use your talents because you have them. And when this little girl did that, she never looked back.
I think I know who that little girl was.
Yep.
It's an important thing, though, for not only people in general, but I think women specifically need to hear, especially now, is that the odds may be stacked against you, but don't let the bastards keep you down.
No, and it doesn't matter what other people think about you. That is not a you problem. It is a them problem. When I was in high school, the in crowd said, Yvonne, you're a rebel. And I said, yeah. Well, you don't need to be a rebel. Well, why not? Why do I need to be blonde and cute and perky and false? Why can't I just be who I am and be unique in my own way and march to my own drummer? Why do I have to march to someone else's drummer just because that's the expectation? Why am I not allowed to follow my dreams like everyone else follows their dreams? When I realized that it doesn't matter what other people think of me, and it doesn't matter if I don't live my life to other people's expectations. What matters are my expectations, and what matters are if I can lay down and go to sleep at night and wake up with my decisions the next morning, it's okay. And if my expectations don't meet others, and if people don't approve of me because I have sugar skulls as my curtains, or my house is in Halloween year round, or I dress different, if that's not to their approval, not my problem. It's their loss, actually, because I'm kind of fun.
I would say that you are more than kind of fun. No, I had a thought process the other day, and I know I promised no political or social, but this kind of falls in line, so I do apologize.
No worries.
So I had a thought process the other day. I was trying to figure out what it is about the LGBTQ community that everyone seems to be so against. And Ali was like, well, it's fear. And I was like, I don't think it's fear. I don't feel that it's fear. And she was like, well, what do you think it is? And I said, I think it's jealousy. It feels more like jealousy to me. And she was like, well, what do you mean jealous? They want to be gay? And I said, no, they may not necessarily want to be gay, but look at it. When you look at the LGBTQ crowd, they are living their life how they want to, despite what society is telling them, despite what religion seems to tell them, despite what their families seem to tell them. They are choosing to be themselves above all else. And that, I think, is the issue, is that it comes from a place of jealousy, because you've got these straight white or straight black or whatever. You have these conservative types and whatnot that are stuck in dead-end jobs, stuck in marriages that they don't want, stuck with kids that they don't want. They are living their life to please others. And when they see someone who is living their life to make themselves happy, that makes them angry, because they want that for themselves, but I don't think that they know how to express it. So it comes out as hatred, it comes out as fear, it comes out as bigotry and things like that. And she looked at me and she was like, I don't know if you're right, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone else put it that way.
And it's also a sign of insecurity. When someone is secure in their own skin, it doesn't matter what other people are doing, how they're living, how they're behaving, what their belief structure is. But when we choose to criticize someone for what they're doing, not doing, or whatever, it's because we are insecure in who we are. It took me a long time to understand I'm okay just the way I am. I'm very secure in who I am. You ask me a question, my first thing to you is, do you really want the answer? Because I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah, there's a standing rule with most of my friends. Don't ask my opinion unless you actually want it.
Exactly. Because number one, I'm not going to lie to you. I won't be ugly about it, but I am secure enough in who I am inside. I don't have to be critical of other people. I don't have to worry about their lifestyle or what they're doing. Some of my best friends are gay. I absolutely adore them. You know, I wrote The Pink Canary about the drag queens.
Mm-hmm. No, and it wasn't an attack at you. And I was very careful with my wording too.
No. I know
you're faithful and conservative and whatnot, but
no, I know you're not personally attacking me. I'm not. But what I'm saying is, in general, the same people that you're talking about, they're not secure in who they are, and they are jealous. They are insecure. They are wanting something else, and 9 times out of 10, they don't know what it is that they want. They just know that they want something.
Right. And then, like I said, it's a matter of how dare you know what you want when I can't figure it out.
Exactly.
So, but like I said, it was just a thought process I had, and based off the story you told, it seemed fitting.
And I appreciate that. And trust me, I knew you were not attacking me.
Yeah. Well, and I need to make that clear a lot of the times too, because Ollie tells me all the time that when I speak to people, I come off as mean and insensitive, and I'm like, no, that's not my intention. I'm just very matter of factly like, this is what I think. This is what I'm telling you. You can take it or leave it. And she's like, yeah, but it doesn't come across that way. You often seem like you're attacking. She also tells me that I come off like I'm better than everybody else, and like, that's not my intention either. I ran into that in the South because I could string two sentences together and used words bigger than cat. Everybody thought I was better than them.
Well, again, you are comfortable in who you are.
It took me a long time to get here.
And you don't have to you should never have to apologize for being real. I stopped apologizing for being real a long time ago.
I'm getting there.
I do not apologize for being real and for following my path, my truths, and my convictions. There was a time when I did. There was a time when I would not speak up for myself. Believe it or not, I am an introvert. But when I learned that I'm okay the way I am, and that if someone has a problem with what I say or my lifestyle, and they come to me, I'm going to explain it to them in terms that they understand. And if it means being a little bit tough, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm for the most part, I'm okay with who I am. Of course, everybody's got changes and stuff they want to make about themselves, and the ways that they can improve. But 95% of me, I'm okay with. And if you're not, well, too bad. You don't have to live in my skin, and I don't necessarily need you in my life. Like it or lump it. I'm gonna be who I am.
And they haven't traveled your journey.
Yeah, it took me many years to get here, and I'm okay with who I am, and I am very, very quick and easily to tell you to go fuck yourself.
But what I tell people is, look, I've embraced I know my strengths. I also know my weaknesses and my flaws. I'm opinionated, overbearing, domineering, but I'm cute. And so
I don't even have that going for me. Damn.
So
I'm smart.
What I do is I embrace my flaws and make them my strengths and try to work. No, I work them in a way that if I am opinionated, that it doesn't come across as you're not entitled to yours, but I'm entitled to mine. I want them to be entitled to theirs. And I want them to give me the same respect of hearing my opinion that I give them when I have to hear theirs. So we can embrace our flaws and our weaknesses and make them our strengths in such a way that we're more well-rounded.
Yeah, very much so. All right, Miss Yvonne, you've made it through 2 parts. We are ready if you are to go into interview roulette.
Okay.
Now, before we got started, I had you pick 5 numbers, and these are the questions that correspond to them. Here we go. Your first question is, what is something that you don't mind paying more money for?
My truck.
It doesn't matter how much gas is or how much repair costs are. That's your baby, right?
That's my baby. I thank God and Jack for that truck every day.
What's the name of your truck?
It's George.
George. Everybody names their car, especially if they love it as much as you say you do.
Well, the thing is, I looked high and low when the Suburban started becoming a money pit, and I knew that I needed to go to another vehicle. I didn't want to go to a smaller vehicle because I'd driven the Suburban for so many years because that was the only vehicle that Jack felt safe in. So I called my financial guy and I said, I'm not paying $90,000 for a Suburban, a brand new. And he said, Yvonne, do you like trucks? I said, I love trucks. I drove one for years. He said, the Silverado has the same chassis as your Suburban. I said, done. So I knew what I wanted. I knew how much I wanted to pay for it. And I went 500 miles out looking for one. and found one at my local dealership, went and had my service guy look at it. And I said, okay, I'm taking this truck home. And they go, well, we can finance. I said, no, we're not financing it. I said, I'm paying cash for it. And the guy goes, oh, okay. And the truck and I have been together ever since.
It's so funny. They don't know. You would think that at a dealership they would like the idea of cash, but it seems like every time you walk in, because that's how I've paid for all my vehicles. I've always paid cash, and it seems like they get confused. Like,
yeah, they don't know how to. They don't know how the what you want to do what.
Yeah. Granted, I've never paid more than $2,000 for a car. But I've still walked in with cash and been, when they start, no, I brought my friend Cash with me.
Yeah.
He would like to speak to your manager.
Well, and every week or so, I get a letter, a text message, or a postcard, or an email from dealerships all across the country going, we want to buy your truck. How much can we pay you for it? And my response is, well, I tell you what. Now, my truck is a 2016 fully loaded. It has a tonneau cover. It has a bed liner in it. It's got all the bells and whistles. OnStar is my best friend. So my response to them is, if you will give me a 23 with everything that I have currently on this truck as an even trade, we'll talk. But if that's not on the table, then take your little questions elsewhere, because I love my truck.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I think so.
And they'll be like, nah, never mind. You never hear from them again.
No, actually, they keep hounding me.
They think they're going to be able to break you down.
Obviously, they don't know me.
All right. What do you think is totally inappropriate but is commonly seen in today's society?
Oh, where do I start? When movies, sitcoms, television shows, when the writer's lack of an intelligent script is nothing but cursing and nude bedroom scenes, we got a problem.
That's fair.
When the whole storyline is nothing but the F-bomb and MF bomb, and every time you turn around, people are, even the sitcoms you can consider pornography today. There's no storyline. It's in and out of bed.
I will say that there are a few that still have that in them, but still provide a solid storyline. And maybe it's a generational thing. Right now, Amazon Prime has The Boys. The Boys is nothing but cursing and sex and gratuity of violence, but there's still a good solid story there, and it came from a graphic novel series, so it was just as bad, but the solid story there. I see what you're saying, and you are right on a lot of cases, but every so often there's a few outliers.
This is true. I will give you that. There are. I have seen a few, but they are few and far between.
Oh yeah. It's far easier to write sex scenes and trying to make blue comedy. I don't know if anybody even still uses that term anymore, but blue comedy is the lowest common denominator. It's easy.
And you don't have to think.
Yeah.
You don't have to be creative. I don't know where they're getting these writers from, but apparently they need to go back to creative writing 101.
What's your favorite TV show right now? What's the show that you can't miss?
Zero.
You don't have one?
I do not have one.
Okay. So, all right. Well, moving on.
I can miss it or not. It does, and it's because I can predict exactly what's going to happen before the end of the show.
You know what? I'll give you that. Yeah. As someone who is an avid reader and writes occasionally, in your case, an avid reader and avid writer, yeah, I get it. Yeah, there's no mystery there.
None at all. It's sad.
I'm trying to think too, like, when's the last time a TV show has shocked me, or
you said I didn't I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, and it's no.
Actually,
yes. Now that I think about it, Stranger Things, the newest season of Stranger Things. There was something that happened, and I'm not going to ruin it for anybody that might be listening or seeing this. But there was something in there that shocked me. I wasn't expecting. Understand why they did it. Went back and rewatched it. Should have seen it coming. Didn't see it coming.
Because it was so subtle, it just snuck up on you.
Yeah, it was kind of a gut punch. Well, Stranger Things is known for killing, characters every season.
Right.
And there was one that I knew right out the gate was going to die. There was no way out for this character. But there's a second one that kind of got caught up in the crossfire that I didn't see coming.
Don't you hate when that happens?
Yeah, because you're like, no, why? Okay, next question. Elvis or the Beatles, and why?
I have to say Elvis, simply because he was, for lack of a better word, the father of the Beatles, and that he opened the doorway for a lot of artists at a time when went and didn't grind on the Ed Sullivan Show. You just didn't do it. But because he never compromised his craft, others were able to follow in that and not get the backlash he did.
Yeah. No, he took it all. Yeah, and he got a lot of backlash, not just for the gyration, but for the supposed appropriation of African American culture and music and stuff. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that blues and the blues singers are responsible for what we know as rock and roll today.
Exactly. And if they watch the there was a show, and I think it was on Amazon Prime, about Muscle Shoals, Alabama. I highly recommend that documentary because it talks about Southern blues, which is a whole different blues than Chicago blues.
Yeah. No, you are correct. All right. What would be the absolute worst name you could give your child?
Dumbass.
Just write it on the birth certificate. Ma'am, are you sure? I said what I said.
No, I don't think there is one, because to me, a name is just a string of letters put together to form a word. And a name may mean something. We named my grandson Cherokee John Austin, and he asked why he wound up with so many names, and my daughter said, well, because Mom and I had a bet, and the bet was, I said you were a girl, she said you were a boy, and if you were a boy, your first name would be Cherokee, and she won the bet. My children were all named the names they were named for a reason. I even like the name Phineas.
It is a good name.
Names are powerful if you embrace them. I like the name Molly. I like the name Maggie. I like the name Margaret. But then the names that have fallen down through our ancestry, some of them were a little off. They were different, but you have to go back and study the history. So I would say that there's not a name that I don't think I wouldn't name my children. Unless it's something derogatory like K2O or something just stupid.
See, I've had a theory for a while that I started noticing things. Like, I know several Dans, and they all are either fall down drunks or alcoholics. I've started noticing patterns with people's names. And I know that everyone's life is different and, characteristics lead them to wherever they are. But man, I know a lot of alcoholic Dans. I know a lot of different Chris's who are much like myself and not quite all there up here. It's funny. And I guess then, okay, Do you find yourself when you're writing a character that you know nobody's going to like, that you lean more towards naming them this or that?
No,
Okay.
it's whatever that character decides he wants to be. Because let's just say the main character in Top Hat, the protagonist, he has a very well respected name, but he's a scoundrel. So I think it doesn't matter to me whether the reader likes him or not. It's the character's prerogative to name himself what he chooses, because if I try to name him, the story goes nowhere. So I have to go back and change the names.
Yeah, no, I get you. I understand. Surprisingly so, too. Aha!
I'm going to be this person. You're not changing it because you're not writing another word. Okay.
Yep. All right. And the last question for Interview Roulette is, what's the best thing about your life?
My joy and my peace.
Care to explain? Because you said you don't relax, so peace is...
But peace comes from within. Relaxing and peace are two different things. I am at peace with my life, with all the chaos that goes on in it, with all the uncertainties that goes on in it. And I have an inner joy that nobody can steal, because I know this world is not my home. I know that I'm going to a better place. I know that no matter what anyone says or does against me, that they have to live with that. I don't. I know with a certainty that I am not in control of everything. There's only one person that is in control, and he sees way down the road. So things that I can't change, I don't worry about them. Things that I can change, I change them and move on. So I don't dwell on all this stuff. So with that comes an inner peace and an inner joy that nobody can steal.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm a little bit of the opposite, though. I see the things that I don't think I can change, and I still want to try.
See, and therefore you have utter and total chaos in your life, and it keeps you in a turmoil.
Not as much as you would think, though. For some reason, trying gives me the peace that, because at least I'm doing something. I'm making the attempt.
There is that.
I could easily, like I said before, it's very easy to complain. It's harder to complain and come up with suggestions for solutions.
You are right. That is true. But once you've come up with a solution that nobody wants to adhere to, there comes a time you have to just say, okay, I'm moving on to something else that deserves my attention more, rather than being a rat in a wheel.
But if I can get one person, and that's usually all I ever need, is if I can get one person to listen, I'm happy.
But because see, that may not be changing the situation. What that basically is doing is changing your attitude of how you feel about the situation.
I know it goes back to that whole kindness thing that we talked about,
You're
where
right.
If you're nice to one person, it trickles out. I understand that. So if I can get one person to get it, that's all I need.
That's all you need.
If one person gets it, it may not come up right away, but that person will take that idea and carry it out further and further and further.
And you may not be allowed to see it happen, but...
Oh, no, I'm not going to see any of the stuff that I want to see in my lifetime. I got 30 years left if I'm lucky, you know?
Maybe more.
Well, I'm not sure I want more based on what I see going around. Like 30 years is going to be enough, but...
What I tell my children is I am going to... My goal, if God allows it, is for me to grow old enough to not only be a burden to my children, but to their children and to their children and to their children.
I've got the burden thing covered. There's a lot of people in society that think I'm a burden. I won't have kids, but I'll definitely be a burden to somebody. All right, Miss Yvonne, I want to thank you for sitting down and talking with me and taking the time today.
You are quite welcome. It was my pleasure. Anytime.